So there's lots of things that are happening. We've heard about cloud technology, and I'll talk through our approach to that. And I think what is important is we're going to see a greater traction and growth with applications coming from the cloud. So we're already seeing this with software vendors looking at software as a service application, the whole pay-as-you-go type model where you can draw down applications and use them tactically within a business. So you can start to evaluate new technology, see how, where and why it's going to benefit the organisation, and then you can look at where it can be deployed. So the way in which technology is being delivered, the cost models are changing, and it's a lot more flexible today. SIP trunking, so I mentioned that SIP is a protocol that really helps to glue all of these different communication channels together. It helps to link these different platforms together as well. And one of the big business uses that we've seen, in addition to presence and availability status markings, is something called SIP trunking. So I'll talk through what that is, why it's emerged, and the sort of benefits that it delivers. I think with, again, the whole change around managed services and cloud, when we're looking at centralizing technology and we're looking at the routes to be able to connect, there's a lot of change that's happening in the actual network infrastructure. So we're working with customers and we're connecting through their networks to be able to deliver service to them. But we're also connecting and helping them connect to other service providers. So in essence what we're doing is absolutely, it's cloudy, it's getting cloudier, is we're connecting clouds together. And I think this is something that we're going to be seeing more and more of, is how do you connect into different service providers, how do you make those new technologies available, and how do you look at the security challenges to be able to manage that as well. There's a big change in the IT space with virtualization. So looking at consolidating IT infrastructure, bringing it into the core, and with that comes the ability to start to be a little bit more agile in how you're managing and deploying applications across an organisation. I think business continuity as well, so cost savings have been important, but we're in a world where customers expect the 24/7 contact support, shareholders expect it, and the damage to the brand if the organisation isn't available is clear to see. So I've entitled it the perfect storm, and we are in a period of huge change in our industry, and there's been a number of external factors that are helping to accelerate the adoption of new technology. Most definitely economic and financial pressures. Things aren't, I'm sure, going to get easier. There's a number of public sector cuts that have happened. There'll be further ones that will take effect. Economically, organisations have had to look at how they service their customers, looking at most definitely how they differentiate to add value, but the financial considerations and constraints have been there. So looking at productivity improvements and efficiency improvements has been very important. So we've helped many customers review what they're doing. We've helped them look at the cost models that they're working to. We've helped them look at the raft of services and technology they're using, and then we've worked out how to deliver cost savings. So a figure that I had up there earlier on was 40% cost savings, and I'll talk through how we've done that and examples of that as well. Most definitely customers' demands and expectations have changed, and they'll continue to change, and what we see is a growing demand for multi-channel communication. That's not going to go away, it's only going to increase. We see the demand of social networking interfaces, and that will continue to grow and evolve. And we've also seen, to me, something that we refer to as transferable experiences. So if I go and contact an organisation and I get a great level of service, it doesn't matter who that organisation is, that's my new benchmark. Yeah? So that's where my bar is now set. And when I go and contact the next organisation, that really is my minimum expectation of how I should be serviced. So each and every time we're in a position where organisations, as I said, are trying to add value, they're using technology, they're trying to be smart in how they service and engage customers. And we're in an environment where people who are doing it well are creating and raising that bar for all of us to compete against. Most definitely aspects such as business continuity, governance and risk. It's sensible business governance. We've seen the introduction of a BSI standard, BS 25999 for business continuity, and what's happening is that's being driven through the marketplace. So it's being driven through the public sector, large organisations are adopting it, and we have worked with customers to support and evaluate their business continuity through technology, and conversely we've been asked by our customers as to what our business continuity plans are, because today if you're dependent upon critical suppliers, and if the supplier fails and if they can't service you or the platforms and the technology that you're using aren't available, it has a huge impact and knock-on effect. And we shouldn't underestimate it. Organisations who suffer significant downtime, they start to lose business. The longer it goes on, the bigger the business impact. There's all sorts of studies that we have access to around the time, the critical time to actually get back online and start operating. And once you go past a certain period, it can have a really significant impact to the organisation. The green giants as well, so carbon reduction and environmental concerns. So we work with clients of ours, which is the World Wildlife Fund, and clearly from their point of view, looking at the environmental impact of technology and how they can reduce it, and virtualization has been a great technology to help to reduce their carbon usage and footprint, but also some of the new technologies such as the collaboration tools and home working to be able to reduce the impact of travelling. So we see this, and it's not just a case of the corporate social responsibility and organisations who want to and are being judged on their environmental credentials, but there's also the green effects measured in pounds and dollars of the cost savings that can be achieved through carbon reduction. Globalisation of business. So again, as organisations have spread and have locations throughout the globe, the importance of connecting people and sharing information. The knowledge workers, the example Roger gave of being Mr. Google. The need to connect people and share information across an organisation. The need for business agility, again, we're in a world in which we're trying to add value, trying to compete. Hearing the Gartner views of what's important for CEOs around innovation, this will continue to drive this. I think with one of the other things as well, just picking up on the carbon reduction, we've heard recently about the increase in energy costs as well. So wholesale gas and electricity costs going up. So again, that's going to have a big impact on people looking at more efficient ways of using technology. So the big thing that we're being asked for is absolutely, how can we do more for less? We've got all these challenges that we need to deliver back into the organisation. We've got these strategic goals. We want to innovate. We want to attract new customers and and look after our existing customers. We want to embrace technology to change the way in which we're working for the better. But all of that involves resource, cost, time, effort and money. So how do we review what we're doing? How do we optimize that to be able to reinvest in the technology for the future? So what I'm going to talk through is this changing technology marketplace, what we've seen, what we've been doing with customers, how we're helping them to standardize the infrastructure, how we're helping them to really get to that utopia of more for less. So how do we deliver cost saving, and how do we manage that migration from this very confusing mixed environments of lots of different manufacturers and service providers and software providers and network connections. How do we get a sense of structure and strategy to be able to move forward from? So most definitely, there is a big move into data centers. So organizations, who in the room has virtualized data environments, IT environments? Okay, that's quite unusual. We certainly organizations that we're working with, we're seeing that a lot of people have already undertaken this move. What was the reason for virtualizing the infrastructure?
One was electricity costs be lower, and two, make it easier to do various things like maintenance, basically, on the server.
Sure.
And consolidation. Didn't need that many servers. So virtualize them and move the data around. Again, had less servers in the end.
Yeah, and again, this is what we see as a business, because we're we develop applications, we support applications for clients as well as clearly consume our own applications in the business. We were unbelievably at one point running more servers than we had staff, so we had this huge overhead of IT resource cost, and it became a challenge to manage it, to house it, to power it. So we've moved our applications, both that we use ourselves, but also that we provide to the market, into the data center environment. So we've been able to dramatically reduce the hardware that's required, but also importantly create much greater resilience, because we can have application failover, automatic failover from one blade to another. So in the previous environment, if we were to lose a server, we've got a problem. In this virtualized environment, we can have applications available ongoing for the organization and indeed our customers. So that always-on mentality is certainly supported very well with virtualization. Managed services, pay-as-you-go applications, and also resource, the software as a service model. Who's using applications from the cloud already? Okay, so a few more hands going up there. And again, I see this will only continue to grow. Why go and build the infrastructure yourselves? Cost models of managed services and software as a service technology platforms is to make it available to a very large audience and marketplace. So from the point of view of cost to consume, it becomes a much more cost-effective model. It is also a lot easier to go and try some technology, use it for a period of time, and maybe make the decision it's not right for us. We want to go and use something else, or we want to go and migrate to a different platform. So it starts to change the way people work and gives greater flexibility. An introduction of SIP, so it's that SIP acronym again. So these are some of the things that we're helping people with. Ease of management, and I'll show tools that we use and deliver to help with this. More resilient environments, so the virtualization example of being able to automatically have resilience and failover and backup, but also how do we deliver this within a telephony environment. So I'll share with you how we're doing it, and the benefit of this wonderful thing called SIP that I've mentioned. We'll talk about cost savings through consolidation. So where we're looking at simplifying the technology environment, we're also looking at simplifying the supply chain as well. One great example that we've been involved in was an organisation called Auto Windscreen. So this was well over about 2 years ago now, and they came to us. They'd spun out of Avaya, a much larger organisation, and they had some challenges where there was in essence a new business set up, and they had a real mixed environment of suppliers and lots of different telephone systems. So the example that Roger gave us of the retail organisation with 300 sites and huge array of different telephony platforms is not uncommon. Auto windscreens were suffering the same thing. They had outdated technology that was making it hard for them to support their customers, making it hard for the staff to do their job. And they had such a mixed supply chain that it was very hard to actually work out a strategy to move forward, to be able to reduce costs, but more importantly to work out the right technology platform to support the business moving forward. So over a period of 6 months, we sat down with them, reviewed where they were at, we worked out a strategy and a plan for them as to being able to create a simplified technology landscape. So we looked at all the different telephony platforms, all the different services they were consuming, all the different suppliers, and we created what was a standard consolidated platform. We moved all of the contracts under one roof, we renegotiated, we delivered around about 50% cost savings whilst enabling them to increase the productivity in the call centre by 50%. So that really is a great example of the more for less environment. And all of that was done across 100 locations throughout the UK onto a single supply chain, new platform within 6 months. So it involved a lot of planning, but it was very well executed. Okay, what I'm just going to do is look at the sort of traditional world that we know are used to and have been working with for many years. So the traditional world shows us that we have different locations for voice. With there we'll have telephone systems implemented, and then there will be connections generally to ISDN, to the PSTN network through ISDN lines. So I'm sure familiar with all of us in the room. And then on the flip side of it, there's usually a separate data network, so it can be point-to-point connections, or more commonly today we're seeing MPLS networks, and really, never the two shall meet. Voice over IP has enabled us to start to introduce telephony onto the wide area network, so site-to-site calling, that utopia of free calls between sites, but we're still generally in a position where we're using ISDN as an outbound call mechanism. So what we see with ISDN is with each of the individual sites, you will have more capacity than you need. Of course you do. You can't afford to have one particular site with insufficient capacity to be able to cope with the peak periods. Now, if you add all of that extra capacity together, what it actually does is it provides a massive spare capacity that's not being used, that's being paid for. We did this example in a scenario with Trailfinders recently. So they're a large travel organisation. They have 1,400 staff throughout the UK. What it is actually is, in essence, is a networks call centre. So they have a presence on the high street, which are all linked together over IP telephony, and any call coming into Trailfinders can be routed anywhere across the UK as if it's one great big call centre. So they've got the benefit of the local presence, but actually of a great big networks call centre. And when we looked at it with those guys, over time as they've grown, they'd added more and more services, and they got to a point where they weren't really clear what they actually had and what they were paying for. It's not uncommon. The BT bills are quite confusing. There'll be lots of different services that are no longer needed that are still being paid for. And what we saw with those guys is that they had 1,400 telephone lines. Now, when we undertook a review and an analysis of the situation, we were able to see that there was a maximum capacity needed of between 400 and 450 telephone lines. Now, that's across the group as a whole. So if we're able to treat this enterprise, this network, in essence as one great big telephone system, then we're able from there to reduce the resource capacity that was actually required. Now, if we take the cost of ISDN channels of between 13 and 15 pounds per month, that's a hell of a lot of money that they were spending each and every month and year that didn't need to be seen as a cost for them. What we then did is we've implemented SIP, and I'll come on to the cost benefits of that for them. With ISDN, of course, the other challenge you get is one of resilience. So one Saturday in January just happened to be the busiest day of the year for trail finders. Somebody managed to cut through the bearers going into one of their London sites. So 210 telephone lines are just gone. Yeah. And whilst they use non-geographic numbers, that bit was easy. We automatically rerouted them elsewhere in the network and they were picked up. They still have got a lot of geographic telephone numbers, so the 0207 numbers. So all of those callers to those numbers couldn't get through. Now, of course, contacting BT, we were able to set up diverts and move the calls over, but it takes time. It took a number of hours to get those things sorted out. And of course, once that was done and it was all fixed, we need to move them all back again. And with ISDN, it's inflexible when it comes to resilience, because if I've got a bearer with lots of telephone numbers attached to that bearer, I have to basically pick up all of those numbers and shift them to an alternative location. I can't spread the load by moving DDI numbers across the network. So it created a real problem for them. So on the data network, again, some of the challenges we've seen is the cost. It's expensive to deploy a data network. Certainly the costs are coming down today with bandwidth. But again, we see we can have a mixed supply chain, so we can have different providers for DSL backup, for the main network, for internet connections. We may not get the reporting that we require. If we want to make changes to our network, it can take a fair amount of time to get those changes through. If we want to start to prioritize the traffic over the network, we're then going to look at adding class of service, quality of service tags. So they're pretty complex to manage. So if we can, they're expensive resources. It makes sense to look at are we optimizing the network? Are we getting the best return for the money we're spending? But also, what other applications can we start to run across this expensive investment as well? So there's lots of bubbles there, lots of clouds there. But in essence, what we're doing is we're working with customers to enable them to consolidate the data network and the voice network together. I think really, some of the key things that we look at from a cost-saving perspective is if I'm able to remove the ISDN channels that are no longer needed, I achieve a great cost benefit. If I'm then looking at SIP, and I'm looking at the cost argument of a SIP trunk versus an ISDN channel, it's a third of the cost for providing the same telephony service. So there's some great arguments for doing that. The other thing, as we move to the next model, is what I can then start to do is I can use my SIP trunking platform where calls are coming in, and I can distribute it across the network, across the organisation. So these these blobs at the bottom can be different sites. So if one of these sites is not available, I can take the calls through the call network and reroute it to an alternative destination. So I can start to build automatic resilience and call flows into what I'm doing. The other thing, of course, is what I then do is I can look at the connections into this cloud, and I can start to consolidate my requirements down. So I've got a great big data connection. I can route lots and lots of calls. I can scale it up and scale it down. I've got much greater flexibility than I would have ever had with ISDN, because if I want to add new channels with ISDN, it takes me time to go and order those blocks starting from 8 lines up to 30. They need to be implemented, and if I then have a quiet period, I'm paying on a contract for those resources I don't need. So SIP is one of those cloud type applications that's enabling us to deliver services more cost effectively, but also in that flexible environment. If I want to increase the resource that's needed, we tune it up. If I want to reduce the resource that's needed, we tune it down, and the cost models change accordingly. The other thing we can then start to look at is a whole range of other applications up in the core. I'll pick up on CTI and WAN governance as part of this presentation as well. And what we're doing with this whole model is really, there's a few different layers. There's the services platform, where we're delivering applications from the cloud, from the core. And of course, as I said, what we can then do is we work with customers to create these interconnecting clouds to link into other service providers. We're taking the complexity of the telephony from the edge and able to move it up into the core. So look at creating sites where we're delivering telephony and applications and services from without the reliance of hardware at the edge. So absolutely, if the investment's been made with the existing telephony platforms, with Avaya we can utilise those. But if we're then looking at the overall management of those different systems and maintenance costs and changes, we can start to look at how we simplify those, pull the actual control, software and management back into the core. A big change that we're seeing is around this piece as well, the connectivity layer. So with the MPLS providers, typically organisations have gone to the likes of BT, Cable and Wireless, Verizon and so on, to be able to construct a sort of approach of a one-size-fits-all network. Now, it's not, there's no thing such as a one-size-fits-all, and there's a lot of change in this industry with the introduction of Ethernet technologies and Ethernet over first mile, which is delivering communications over fibre. The cost has come down, and also a really big change is the introduction of some technology called Annex M. So we're able to really build on the strength of DSL technology, which people have been used to. So lower cost broadband connections, which can be delivered as a business grade service, and I'll talk through how we've done that, to what is a change with Annex M, which is providing, in essence, greater equality between the download and upload streams of DSL. So in DSL, what you'd be used to is very high download streams, but low upload allowance, as it were. So when we start to move to these models of cloud services and centralising what we're doing, well, actually, if we're running voice through them, we need to increase the bandwidth through the upload stream as well. So Annex M enables you to take that traditional view of ADSL, which is lots of download and not much upload, and take some of that download and put it into the upload stream. So it starts to balance out those flows of data transmission. Now, what we can do with Annex M technology is we can start to deliver much more cost-effective connections for branch office environments. So in the traditional world with an wireless network, there's an expensive tail that goes into the network. What we're doing is we're constructing across multiple tier 1 carriers what is a custom designed network solution. So we have interconnects into tier 1 carriers, so things such as the private DSO I talked through. What we're able to do is to actually deliver guaranteed bandwidth for clients without having the vagaries of travelling over the internet. So we can utilise that technology without having the impact of congestion on the network. Yeah. And the same thing with Ethernet connections as well, because we can look at the bandwidth requirements that are required, we can look at the location, we can then look at the options that are available from the different network providers and work out the best one based upon location, speed, price, to be able to create this bridge network environment for clients. So it's all changing a lot. So these are some of the services that we're delivering up in the core through our service platform. So NetX is a carrier-grade SIP exchange platform. So we've got connections directly into the BT network. We then have got the SIP integration with the telephony platforms as well. So we're able to then connect and make and receive telephone calls and connect different systems and environments together. And we really are seeing a hell of a lot of interest and take up in this technology. I think for me, we're at a point where there's been a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of different new service providers that are coming to the market, and you've probably been inundated with people telling you about SIP trunking and the benefits of it. What we've done is we've built our platform based on a lot of experience that we've had over 8 years of delivering SIP trunking. And what I can say is there are a number of challenges that a lot of new entrants to the market are certainly experiencing. I know through some of the clients that we work with, in fact a mutual one with Avaya, which is Endemol, when they were looking at with us how they were going to be simplifying their infrastructure and embracing new technologies such as SIP, they went out to market. They spoke to various organisations as to how they could embrace that technology, and in fact the end point was their existing WAN provider Telstra, after undertaking the technical due diligence on our platform, actually recommended that Endemol went ahead with a Britannic SIP service. So that's a network provider that's delivering a SIP service to market that recommended their client should proceed with our platform. Clearly we can't give you all the detail today, but we'd love to talk through the technicalities of why our platform is so strong in the marketplace. In fact, some of the things that we're doing, because we're a firm believer that we want to help people understand the benefit of the technology and test, try, and migrate smoothly over to new environments, as we provide pilots of the SIP trunking platform, and that's actually very easy for us to go and set up. So we can either provide network interconnection with existing WAN providers. We link it to various data centres throughout the UK, so we can actually show the quality of our SIP exchange platform and the sort of benefits that can be derived from the continuity routing. Net Manager, which is a bit our tool through, is really it's a technology framework that helps you to govern what goes on this network, on the wide area network. So as we're adding more and more applications to the network, we need to work out what's important, what do people need, what do they require to do their job, and we need to align and balance the bandwidth accordingly. And clearly the introduction of new technologies, we need to make sure that they're actually operating effectively over the network, because otherwise all we do is overload the network and and suffer bottlenecks and downtime. And NetConnect is in essence a CTI middleware platform that we can deliver through customers' on-premise solutions, but also we can make available from the cloud. So some of the things that we can look at from the point of view of helping to improve productivity, efficiency, and personalised service requires CTI technology, the glue, to link telephony system with database applications and platforms. The idea of the screen pop and click to dial and skills-based routing of who is the best person to deal with that inquiry. So these are some of the technologies that we're delivering from the cloud. So Net Manager, well, what is it? It's really there to help you get an understanding of what's going on across the network. So with the change that we're seeing, there is a good cost argument of moving from an MPLS network to an Ethernet and Annex M environments, but what bandwidth is actually required? What applications are running across the network? What's the impact of adding a new application? How do I understand it? How do I see it? And how do I manage it? So our framework, again, it's a managed service that we deliver with a pay monthly service charge. Is what I'm able to do is I'm able to look at all the business critical applications across the network, and I can set, in essence, scoring against the application. So I can say that these are the parameters in which this application needs to operate to the satisfaction of the users. So if it starts to hang over a certain period of time, it's going to have a negative impact. So we put all of those parameters into a central system, and then it will automatically, right across the whole network, see what's going on, and we can start to use red, amber, green status. So where there's a problem, we can actually drill down and see why there's a problem, and we can start to diagnose and analyse it, even before the users actually start to notice a difference. And what is interesting using this tool is invariably what we see is that business critical applications consume quite a small proportion of the bandwidth, and invariably people don't have a real handle on what's happening across the wide area network. There'll be applications that are being run that are impacting upon the performance and operation of the organisation. So it could be a YouTube application or an iPlayer that is actually locking out and freezing the system. So when organisations are actually looking at right-sizing the network, so the process of going through and WAN renewals and refreshing, working out what's needed, clearly the network providers will want you to add more and more bandwidth each and every time you go, whereas this tool would enable you to understand what bandwidth is needed for the critical applications, and enable you to make a decision on sizing. So, could we actually reduce the bandwidth requirements and therefore reduce the cost of servicing the business? Okay, as part of it, it enables us to look at different steps along the way as well. So as a diagnostic tool, it is very, very good to be able to pinpoint where problems are. In fact, some of our clients where they work within a mixed supply chain, so we're not currently looking after every element, is they've experienced a problem where the other provider has been trying to point the finger and shift the attention to alternative components within their solution, and they've used this tool to be able to pinpoint and identify why the problem relates to that particular component. So from a point of view of giving foresight and understanding, it's great technology. So as I said, what we do is we look at the applications, we grade them, and from there we're able to set the parameters in which they need to work and operate. So these are some of the considerations we're looking at. And once we've set those objectives, they're automatically pushed out across the network. And then as new applications come online, at different times of day, new sites. It will automatically manage the flow of applications across the network, and it's sort of like a fluid bandwidth control. So the most important applications will be served with the right amount of bandwidth first. If they're not, if the usage is low, then that bandwidth allowance will push down through the stack of applications. So it's a different way of doing it. It's a lot easier to manage. The traditional route is to actually segregate bandwidth and say, I'll give this application this amount of bandwidth, that application that amount of bandwidth, and so on, which actually means that there's waste within the network resource. So what we're doing is we're looking at how we can optimize the network investment that our customers have made, which is significant, to be able to deliver a better level of service to the organisation and the end users. This is just looking at a bit more detail, drill down capabilities, all sorts of charts to be able to see what's going on. And as part of the change, as an organisation, we've, as a managed service provider, we've introduced a NOC where we have technicians who can understand, manage, and proactively support customers, and we'll see more and more of this coming forward in the future. The importance of having the right technical skill set and resource within the business to serve customers proactively, as opposed to lots of field engineers out supporting systems. So it's quite interesting when you go and look at customers that have gone through this, and they've gone through the different stages of understand first of all what applications are being used across the network and where the problem points are, moving through to starting to optimize the performance. So working out the bandwidth that these applications actually require and make it available, through to starting to accelerate using acceleration technologies to again deliver further efficiency on top of the network utilization. As to the impact it has on the end user experience, so this is all well and good from a PowerPoint perspective, but working with customers when we've actually turned these different elements on and looked at the impact across the application set, and then they've had the feedback from the clients, from their users, that the application is improved, the number of calls into the help desk reduces. So this, we're seeing a really important moving forward of having visibility across the network and an application set that's been delivered to market. So some of the benefits, again, what we're doing is we're sitting with people, working out what they're trying to achieve and putting plans together. But invariably what you'll see is cost reduction, resilience, improved management. It becomes easier from a central location, greater flexibility to start to add new applications and new services, scalable, because if we want to add new resource we can keep growing. I think the idea of predictability is important as well. So when you're looking at if you're growing an organisation, or you're looking at refreshing technology, to actually have template designs, so you can actually predict what's needed. You can have an easy cost model to be able to work out how you deliver new services across the organisation. And from a financial perspective, it's a lot easier to go and budget for as well. So some of the anchor points that we're working through, SIP, which is, as I said, main use that we're seeing people adopt it for is a straight replacement for ISDN connections. The new types of networks, so lower cost, same stroke higher bandwidth, designed around the customer as opposed to fixed models from large network providers. The ability at the edge to understand what's going on, reduce the complexity, but have that visibility, that reporting, and the opportunity of governance of how applications are run, and the centralisation of telephony service and resource. So this is very much all around how technology can be simplified, how it can be aligned around a business, and how a path can be created that's right for you and enable you to start to see cost savings, resilience, and productivity gain. So yeah, it's quite challenging, and there's a lot of work that we go through from a due diligence perspective to audit and understand the existing environment, as to start to plan and predict a route, work out a path, and then from there really working in partnership, go and execute. So there's a lot of investment from us at the front end to work out the right plans with our customers to be able to go and embrace new technology, to benefit from a lot of the applications and forward thinking that we've heard from Avaya today, to generate the cost savings to invest in it, but also importantly to create the right infrastructure to be able to go and deploy, introduce and manage the changes moving forward. So part of what we're doing, it's not going to be an overnight switch off where everyone uses SIP and everyone's using cloud services, and everyone's virtualized their infrastructure. It's a path, it's a migration. We've seen, in fact, we still support customers, believe it or not, today with analog only phone systems. So there's clients that we have that have got the same telephony platform that's been in place for 15, 20 years. So everyone moves at a different pace. There are a lot of benefits that can be achieved through moving through these technology innovations. I think for me, that rate of change is increasing as well. Organisations are most definitely looking at where cost savings can be achieved, where resilience can be improved, but also importantly, where new productivity applications and tools can be introduced as well, either of their own making or off-the-shelf tools, or what we will see more of in the future is cloud services and applications. So from our perspective, there is a lot of change. We're going to open up for questions shortly, and we're absolutely here to help. We'd love to work with you and plan out your own route and the changes that you may or may not take, and the associated benefits with it. But for me, these are some of the key elements that this technology is really able to deliver: is business agility, improved management of these environments, absolutely significant cost savings, and we've got lots of great case studies to back all of this up. Predictability of the technology as well. So what am I going to be implementing? How is it going to work? What's it going to cost? And following the Prince 2 program management and project management methods that we undertake, to be able to, in essence, take that great big strategy and break it up into manageable chunks, into manageable projects that we collectively can sit down and agree, understand what we're looking to achieve. We've got a document with a clear path outlined for all of us, and from there we can see the cost, the return on investment, and the resource requirements that are required to make it happen. And I think it's great. I love technology. Maybe like yourself, Roger, a bit of a geek. I do think it's great. If you look at some of the new tools and applications that are coming out, how it makes it easier to communicate with people. Not having to go to lots and lots of different applications to be able to conduct your work, which is, let's be honest, incredibly frustrating and unproductive. To be able to embrace these new communication channels and choose what you use based upon people's preferences, but also in an environment that is resilient, secure, and available. So all of this, we believe, in an exciting time will enable organisations to achieve competitive edge. And for me, you know, as I'm sure Roger as well, you know, we've seen a lot of changes in this marketplace. There's a lot more to come, and where we go with technology, it's very much a case of at what point are people going to be introducing a lot of what we've heard about today into the business. And you know, there is a great opportunity to really embrace this new technology early and start to achieve competitive edge. So that's me. Thank you very much. Let's talk through really what we're doing, our approach, some of the changes in the market with SIP trunking and next generation networks, and the models that we're working with people of taking applications and services that are in essence delivered in a traditional environment in a distributed and complex environment, and simplifying it up into the core, and providing the routes to be able to embrace new technology within what becomes a flexible pay-as-you-go cloud type model.